Welcome to Expert Profiles Atlanta, where Atlanta's influencers and innovators share strategies for overcoming obstacles and achieving success in business and life. Here's your host, best-selling author and Atlanta influencer, Neil Howe.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is your host, Neil Howe, and today's guest is Gail Johnson. Now, she helps couples who are ready to start planning their special wedding day or anyone who has a special event or milestone to celebrate. Her goal is to create an event that is unique and reflects her clients' personalities and wishes. Welcome to the show, Gail Johnson.
Thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit about Gail Johnson Weddings and how you're helping your clients.
Okay, I started Gail Johnson Weddings and Events probably about 25 years ago, so it's something that's very dear to my heart, something that I love. I'm there to guide couples or individuals through the process of planning a wedding or event from start to finish.
Excellent. So obviously with 25 years of experience, you've seen a lot. You've been a part of many different weddings. What are some of the problems that your clients have in preparing for these weddings?
Some of the problems is they don't really understand the scope of what it involves as far as time and the stress that it will cause as far as planning. So I think those are probably two of the biggest things.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit more about that because, you know, weddings can be planned, a year in advance or even more?
They can be planned a year in advance. They can be planned a month in advance. So, there's all different timelines depending on the person.
And then, of course, there's all different weddings. Obviously, the big weddings are going to be the ones that are planned out longest. But, the smaller weddings might be more a spur-of-the-moment decision.
Yes, that's true. But they all require a level of really understanding the scope of what I call it more of a project is going to take. So, they may underestimate that the cost. They may see certain things for a dress or for food, but then they forget about all the hidden costs that are involved. You have to feed your vendors, so you may not include those into your guest count, but those are extra costs and hidden costs that may add up.
Yeah, that's something that I would never have thought of was feeding the vendors. That can add quite a few more heads to the count. So tell me, what else? Do you have a plan or a structure that newly engaged couples should follow when they're thinking about putting their wedding together?
Yes, they should basically think about a budget because that's where you're going to start. So we want to start with a budget, even though they may not have an idea of how much things cost. That's my job is to kind of guide them through finding vendors that are going to work within that budget or to find ways to cut costs, or are there things that you want that are kind of on your wish list? So we may be able to give you a few things on your wish list. We may be able to cut back on other items.
And do you find that the calculations that people have in their heads are way off?
I think so, especially now because there are so many television programs. We have Pinterest now, we have the internet, we have social media. So they see all these fabulous, beautiful weddings and events, and they really think that, they can recreate these events on a smaller budget. And, it's really almost impossible.
Right. So walk me through the timeline. What do you do when you have somebody come to you for help with planning their wedding? What's the first thing you do with them?
Okay, first we want to basically get that budget, and then we want to start with finding vendors. So finding vendors that are going to work within the budget, finding vendors that they feel comfortable with, that they click with. We also want to make sure that we stay on track and create a timeline so that we know every step of the way, that we are, meeting these timelines and that, we're staying on task.
And what are the biggest expenses that generally go into the wedding?
The biggest expense is basically going to be food. So,
food is really the number one thing?
Yeah, food. And then the next biggest would be decor. Because for each one of your guests, that's adding more cost because then you're going to need more flowers. You're going to need more tablecloths. You'll need more chairs. You'll need more food. So every guest that you add is going to create additional cost.
So it really is about knowing that budget first so that you can make all the decisions about the food and the decor and everything else according to, what it is that they actually spend.
Yes, it really is about the budget, but it's also about the process for me because I want the planning process to be really fun and really unique. It's part of the process. And if you're not having fun planning the wedding, then, it's kind of like you want to create that atmosphere that, it's going to be, not stressful. You're going to enjoy this whole planning process and everything that comes into the details as far as maybe cake tasting or something like that. We want that to be enjoyable.
Well, I can imagine some of the things about planning the wedding can be fun for both the husband and the wife. But what are the stresses? What do they really get stressed out about?
They get stressed out of, about a little bit of everything. Sometimes they get stressed out about things that haven't even happened yet, about, I'm going to trip down the aisle, or I'm going to have a relative that is going to embarrass me, or, I'm not going to have enough money, to pay for this wedding because my mom wants to add more people. So, you have all the stress that's coming from every direction. And, the groom may add to that as far as, really saying, well, the bride, I like crystals. And the groom says, well, I don't like crystals. That's too girly for me. So you have all these things that kind of play into it.
Now, as far as the budget goes, how many of the couples do you see go over budget, or do you really try and keep them on the number that they give you?
Well, my job is to keep them under budget, and for the most part, we do that. But we have some clients who basically they have the means to go over that budget, and if it's something that they really want, then their parents are going to pay for it or they're going to pay for it. And, I had one bride who was a doctor and basically she was like, this is the wedding of my dreams. And, I kept trying to get her to cut back, but eventually it was like, this is what I want and I'm going to pay for it. And, the budget is out the window.
Right, which is a nice luxury to have. But, these brides have been thinking about that big wedding day for, decades sometimes, planning it and putting it all together. So what are the advantages of having a wedding planner rather than trying to do it yourself?
Oh, I think the stress level. I think also a lot of brides, they tell me, I've never been married before, so they have no clue what to do. And it's so true because, I've done this and I can do it with my eyes closed. So I'm there to be their advisor and also their assistant. And also, to be there to kind of guide them along the way.
Yes, it's definitely, just thinking about it brings stress to me already. It's definitely a very stressful time. But talk to me about the actual wedding day. What kind of things do the bride and groom get stressed out about on the wedding day, and how do you help alleviate that for them?
For the most part, I find that most of my clients are very relaxed on the wedding day. And that's because, we have pretty much prepared for that day. So everything is done and they're just sitting back and they're getting ready for their day. And then you find a few who will be, worry worst. So they'll worry about anything, no matter what. So those are the ones that, you really have to watch out for, because they are the ones that, oh, I want to drink, or, they just kind of go off the deep end, and we kind of have to bring them back down to earth and to calm them down. But, for the most part, most of my clients are very relaxed and chilling. So, they're pretty happy on their wedding day.
Well, that's good to hear. They must have some comfort with you being at the helm, making sure that everything goes right. So tell me about some of the emergencies that you were able to handle during the wedding process. What things came up that just threw a spanner in the works and, really could have caused a problem for the day?
Oh, there's quite a few. I think that's going to be my next book.
Yeah, right.
I think I'll give you a funny one. Okay, so a funny one, I had basically sent everyone down the aisle, the groom and the bridesmaids, groomsmen, everyone but the bride. So the bride was waiting to go down the aisle, and we really realized that the minister had started without her. So I'm trying to wave at him from the back, and people are looking back at me, and, I've sent the photographer down there to make him stop. And, this was her grandfather that was the minister.
Right.
And he never looked up. He never realized that she had never made it down the aisle. So finally the grandmother was there, and she finally got the minister to stop so we could get the bride down the aisle. But yeah, that was quite hilarious.
Yes, you can make light of that day. There's a lot of funny things, I'm sure, that happen on the wedding day. And ultimately, it is a day that people are going to be talking about for the rest of their lives, telling stories. So it is really important to get that day right. So what happens when you have problems with the vendors? Do you have a backup for these kinds of things?
You always have a backup. There's always a plan B, a plan C. So you kind of go with the flow. I came into a venue one time and, kind of putting the bride away before we started. And we walked past the reception, and she's like, why are those black tablecloths on my table? And, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, why are they on your table? And I'm like, oh, don't worry about that. That is, they're changing them out, and, they were left from last night. So I got her in there. So at that time, we're at plan B, where, I'm calling one of my vendors to get tablecloths and finding out what happened and why the vendor didn't bring the tablecloths. But we did get in touch with the vendor, and he did bring the right color, and we got those on before it was time for the reception. So always a plan B, and there's always something that's going to go wrong. But those are the things that my bride will never know about, and she never asked any more about the tablecloths, because when she came into the reception, they were on the table and everything was perfect.
It was all done, and that's why you have a wedding planner. Now, what are some of the misconceptions people might have about hiring a wedding planner?
Some of the misconceptions are, I don't need a wedding planner. I can do this myself. I have an aunt, I have a cousin, I have someone that's, a wedding planner, or they think they're a wedding planner and they can do it. So I've had quite a few of those, and it really is quite a nightmare when, you want brides to have a professional, someone that's experienced, but a lot of times they can't see the value of the planning, because it is a service and not an actual product, until the end.
Right. And how important is it to have the right vendors? And is that something that you help recommend, or do you find that people have their photographers and everything lined up already?
That depends. I really try to work with people that I can trust and I know will do a good job. If they have someone that they know, that's fine too, but I really try to get them to vet their vendors. Just say they have a photographer, they have a friend that's a photographer, but there's a big difference in a photographer that is a wedding photographer than a person who is a portrait photographer or, a lifestyle photographer. Because a person who's doing photography for a wedding, they do this every week, so they know what to look for. They know that they're shooting certain details. They know that they may have to go back into the kitchen and get up the chef to prepare a plate and shoot that plate. So those are different things that I always encourage them to make sure they get the best vendors that they can find.
Right. Having an expert in their one particular job is very important, and I'm sure other photographers that might just be a friend of the family won't think about some of these things and won't get the ideal pictures that you want to keep for the rest of your life.
Yeah, ideal pictures that you want to keep, because I've had brides, that have told me that, well, my photographer didn't get a picture of my food, so I don't even remember what kind of food I had there. And also there are brides who do want those pictures published in magazines. And those magazines are looking for certain things. So if they don't see those in the pictures that your friend of a family member, that they have taken, then you won't get your pictures published in a magazine.
Now, I know, obviously, like you said, hiring a wedding planner is a service that you charge for, but are you able to cut costs in other areas with your connections after 25 years?
Oh, I think at one point we were able to cut costs and kind of negotiate things, but when the economy crashed, it really came hard for just about all the vendors as far as making a living doing what they do. So, sometimes we can still do that, or we can get vendors to throw in extra stuff, but, I still think that there is a way to save money when you're doing weddings. So, we can get different looks. Maybe we change out the flowers. Maybe you want orchids, but maybe we can get the same look with a different type of flower. So, yes, I think there are ways that, a wedding planner can guide them and can save them money.
Right. And it's with all your experience, it's just knowing what options are available and being able to put them on the table so that they can choose what's going to work within their budget, right?
That's true.
So tell me, are there any specific fears that the bride and groom to be might have as they're leading up to the wedding?
I think that, the only fears that I see are basically just the planning process, making sure that everything is going to go smoothly and making sure that, they're, stress-free. So, I think that's pretty much it.
But ultimately, knowing that you're at the helm has them relaxed, knowing that things are taken care of. So you must be really good at this, Gail.
I've been doing it for a long time, and getting them to trust me and to make sure that I'm going to be there to do all the things that they need me to do will eliminate a lot of that stress that they have.
So, Gail, can you share an example of one wedding that you helped plan that really stood out in your mind? What was special about it, and what were you able to do to really make it a special day for the bride and groom?
Oh, I think they're all special. Okay, I'm trying to think one in particular. Oh, okay. So I had one bride that became very ill right before the wedding, and the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. She had gotten to the point where she almost couldn't walk. So, for me, making sure that everything was done, we put her in a wheelchair and got her halfway down the aisle, and she was able to get up and to walk down the aisle with some assistance. And just seeing her, even as sick as she was, being able to make it through that wedding was really kind of, heartfelt for me. And I just talked to her maybe about a week or so ago, and she's doing really, really well. So that part I'm really happy about.
Well, that definitely shows love and that determination to, even not feeling well like that and being sick to actually get down the aisle and make it happen. That's definitely a nice story. So, Gail, you've been involved with weddings for quite a while. What was it that got you inspired to become a wedding planner?
Uh, for me, I was the go-to person in my family. So if anybody had an event or a wedding or friends, I was the one that they called. So it was one of those things that maybe I was called to do and something I've always had a love for.
Excellent. Well, can you share a lesson that you learned early on in your wedding planning business that really still impacts how you do business today?
Uh, I think the biggest thing that I learned was to make sure that it was a business and not a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
I need to be able to support myself and to support my business. To also make sure that it is a real business, have insurance, have a business license, continuing education. I have a master's degree in healthcare, but that doesn't mean I know anything about weddings. So for me, going back to school and learning the things I needed to learn about weddings was very important.
Great. And are you part of any particular wedding groups or certifications?
Yes, I was a state manager for the Association of Bridal Consultants for 5 years. I definitely mentor. I have certification. I'm a master bridal consultant. So yeah, during the years, I think I have done a lot, and it's been good.
Well, you certainly can't beat experience. Having done so many weddings, you know just everything that is available for people, and you know what to do. Like you said, you can do it with your eyes closed, which is definitely something that you would look for with a wedding planner, is that experience. But what else should people be looking for if they're searching out a wedding planner right now?
One of the things I think they need to search for is finding the best person for the job. Look for experience, look for uh, credentials. Also, look for someone that has a personality that's going to gel with you. You want to be able to be comfortable with that person. And I think those are things that, you really should look for when you're choosing a wedding planner, and not just to look at pricing. So you don't want to price shop. Just find the best person that you can afford.
Mm-hmm. Well, if there was one last piece of advice, maybe something that we haven't talked about yet that you would leave for any engaged couples when they're thinking about setting a date, what would that advice be?
Oh, pick a date, and once you pick a date, then start the planning. Let the party begin. So
Hmm.
don't stress out too much about it. It is a fun process. This is a milestone in your life, and really just enjoy the day, enjoy the time planning, and it will be a great day.
That's right. It's a journey and it all comes together in the end. So, Gail, thank you very much for being a guest on the radio show today. Tell us how to get in contact with you and how we can find out about Gail Johnson Weddings.
Okay, thank you for having me today. You can reach me at Gail, Gail, at Gail Johnson Weddings with a S.com. My website is www.gailjohnsonweddings.com. And you can find me on social media at WED, WED, Gail.
Excellent. Well, thank you for all the content that you've given us. You've given us lots of advice, but the biggest thing is not to stress out and just find that wedding planner that gels with you and set that date and just let it happen. I guess it's we're coming into the wedding season now, even though the weather here in Atlanta isn't great for weddings. I hope it improves soon. But Gail, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for being my guest on Expert Profiles Atlanta today.
Thank you.
And to our listening audience, if you like what you hear, hit that like button and share, and we'll see you next time on the show.
Thank you for listening to Expert Profiles Atlanta with Neil Howe. To learn more about the resources in the show or to listen to past episodes, visit expertprofilesatlanta.com.